Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Stick to the end for some great information. Hey y'all, I just wanted to pop in and give y'all an update. So if you don't know already, I was laid off from my job a couple of weeks ago now. And I figured, hey, I should give y'all an update probably every week. Update on just maybe number of jobs I applied for, interviews I've been on, what I've been doing with my time, that sort of thing. Just whatever the update is. So this is my first one. I waited a couple weeks until after I was laid off for this update because there has been, we just got done with Thanksgiving, and so there's not really a lot happening. So I figured I would just group everything together from the first update and then from the first couple of weeks. I do have notes I'm looking at, so if I look down, it's because I'm looking at words, because I sadly can't remember everything. So there's that. So if you don't know, from my last video, I did mention that I put a post on Twitter. And I, go back and watch that video if you haven't already, but I put a post on Twitter about me looking for work, and then I got some really good responses from that. So I've basically just been applying to those jobs, and then also have been in the process of applying to other jobs that I have found as well on different job boards. So keep in mind that these are the stats for the last 2 weeks. That I have been looking for work, and so that would include November 11th all the way up into November 25th, because we had Thanksgiving, or 26th, somewhere around there, that we had Thanksgiving. So those days don't count because obviously I wasn't actively looking for employment on Thanksgiving, and of course no employers are going to be responding during Thanksgiving anyways. I had about 36 leads from the Twitter posting that I had put out. And then also on my LinkedIn as well, I put a post on there. And then I'd put that post, I think probably a couple days later or so after I did the Twitter posting. So within the same week, I put out both social media posts. And I've been getting kind of feedback from both of those posts. And a lot of the feedback on LinkedIn has been via messaging. So, of course, you're not going to see that interaction. But it's just been a lot of, hey, my company is hiring. See if any of these jobs interest you. If they do, let me know. Those are kind of leads that I've been getting. Also, just job boards that I'm have been on before and that I know about. I have a spreadsheet of information that I've been keeping track of things, and I will make a video on that spreadsheet and kind of how I'll go about filling in that spreadsheet, and hopefully it could be helpful to other people as well. So during this process, again, I've had about 36 leads, and so that's 36 of some sort of contact from people that have said, hey, here's a job, or hey, my cousin is hiring, some stuff like that. So you just never know what kind of information that you're going to get from people from that process. So those are the kind of things I have on my spreadsheet. So of those, I applied to about 15 jobs from that spreadsheet. Now, that doesn't mean I'm done applying to positions. It just means that these last 2 weeks, 15 positions, the ones that I were most I want to hop on this before time runs out or whatever. I want to get the ball rolling on these positions. They're ones I'm interested in. Those are the ones that I have been applying to. So of those are 15 of those that I had submitted jobs for. And these also are not only leads. A couple of these are from a job board that I applied for, and I just wanted to see if maybe there was an interest there. So there's that. All right, so I had 7 initial interviews. I consider initial interviews just like the beginning phases, like, hey, how you doing? What are you looking for? That sort of thing. I will talk more about that towards the end of this video. But I had 7 initial interviews, and I had 1 second interview within the last 2 weeks. Again, keep that in mind. It's within the last 2 weeks. I also had 2 rejections so far from the 7 interviews that I did. So I did the initial 7 interviews. 2 of them said no thank you, and one of them I decided not to move forward with just because I didn't think it would be a good fit, and I wasn't really interested in moving forward with the process. That's why it's so important that you know what you're looking for in this process, so that you can also say, okay, I'm not interested in this. Thank you for your time, but maybe not this time. I believe that part is just immensely important for everybody who's involved, just so you're not wasting the other person's time and also your time. One of these initial interviews I did not hear back from, but it was from a very big company, and they have basically offices all over the US, and so they were just like, well, not this Austin area, but maybe Dallas area. There might be some people. I'll pitch your resume to somebody or to the people that are in the Dallas area and see. And to me, that's just like a no. So I don't follow up on those. If it's not something that I feel that is worth pursuing, I don't really go and pursue those things. But if it's something that I feel like it's worth pursuing, then I'll go ahead and be like, all right, let me see who I can get in touch with, etc. So that one was a no on their end. It was more just like, let me just tell you something so you get off my phone. That's what I felt. And then one of them I'm hopefully going to hear back within this next week that is coming up. If not, I will reach out to them because it is a position that I would like to see where things go with that. So we'll see with that. There was also a couple positions that I applied to on job boards that I also got rejected from. So I don't have that number here written down, but I will write the number on the screen so you can see that as well. And I believe those were also on my spreadsheet. If they were not, I will clarify that in the note that I add above or below on the screen somewhere. So with that being said, what do initial interviews look like? So the initial interviews are, for me, they were 30 minutes. There was a few that were 45 minutes. And in these initial interviews, sometimes it's a hiring manager, sometimes it's a recruiter, depending on the size of the company and how they do interviews, because everyone is different. But basically, this person will tell you a little bit about the company. They will tell you, what the position is, and they will ask you about yourself. And in those moments, that's the time that I talked about the projects that I have completed professionally, and then also the things that I'm most proud of, accomplishments, maybe get into a little bit about challenges in terms of the projects that I have completed in a professional setting, and then also getting into what I'm looking for in a company. What are the things that I want to do? What are the things I'm looking for in that next position? So that was a lot of the time that I spent in initial interviews. For me, the initial interviews are the most relaxing interviews because it's basically just talking about your resume and it's talking about what you're looking towards. Some of them speak to compensation. Some of them have, they don't specify compensation at that time. All of them, like I said, are different, but they're kind of the same thing they're trying to accomplish in each one of these is like, is this person or are you going to be a good fit to move forward in the process? So at that point, you don't want to lie and all these other things. Just be completely honest. I was just upfront about the things that I wanted and the things I was looking for. But I will say the ones that I did in the beginning may not have been as strong as the ones that I've done at like the second part of my week, or the second week that I was doing this, just because the second week I'm like, all right, I'm in it now. So things are a little different. The vibe's a little bit different because, I've had some practice from the other ones. So I would say to you all that are watching and looking for work and, trying to get into that process of like interviews and you're already in that process, I definitely would say to you, practice how you pitch yourself and how you go about that information, because it's definitely important. And a lot of these, like the initial calls have been over the phone, some have been over Zoom calls. And so you just don't really know which way they're going to do things. So you want to make yourself more presentable. Personally, I do find that, either one of those ways works fine for me. It just kind of depends on my mood. I did have a couple of days where I was just like, man, I don't feel like doing this, but I have to do it anyway. And so having a phone conversation would be kind of like, all right, let's just go ahead and get this done with over the phone. You don't get a choice. It's just kind of whatever they have set up. So you don't get a choice in that regard, but you do have a choice in how you approach it with your attitude. So if it meant that, like, if I was having a bad day, I would play some music or something to put myself in a better mood, so that when it came down to like talking on the phone for like 30 minutes with an individual, I don't sound as if I don't want the job or if I don't care. So it was very important for me that I put my best foot forward, even if I'm like having a down day. And so a lot of that also was just like maybe talking to friends or talking to family leading up to the call, and shaking off jitters and all these other sorts of things, just to get yourself ready, as ready as you can be. I mentioned I did have a second interview. The second interview went terrible. There's just no other way to say it. I did not feel good about it after I did it. One thing I would say is I had the interview Friday at 2:00, I think it was. No, it was 1:00. And the interview was 90 minutes long. So it was 1:00 to 2:30. Man, it was just a long time of like being put under a microscope, because it was a coding interview. And so when I gave my availability for that interview, I definitely did myself a disservice by saying, oh yeah, Friday I can be available. And that was a bad idea. So Friday afternoon, I realized the energy for me just declines. And it's just bad. They were mostly a Ruby shop, and so the first part of the interview was them showing me code, and I had to like look over the code and tell them what it was doing. And for me, I had more questions than I had answers, because I was like, what? I haven't looked at Ruby in a long time, and I've never looked at Ruby in a professional setting, so I don't know what it looks like. And to clarify, like when you're doing your own coding projects, like it looks completely different than when you are working for a company and it's like, professional level code, because a lot of people have touched the code and it's just a lot. So I definitely recommend to like look at some like open source code before you go into interviews in a coding language that you aren't familiar with. So that's where I messed up at, is I didn't even look at any Ruby code before that. And so when it came down to like, what am I really looking at? It's like, I don't really even know, but I think this is it. So I stumbled a lot in that interview. The second part of the interview was an actual coding challenge, and they were like, hey, just complete the coding challenge. They didn't specify a language, but they gave a list of languages that they use. And so I kind of got intimidated by the list. And in my head, I thought I should pick something that's on the list. And so I just said, I'll just do JavaScript. And I have not really done a lot of practice in JavaScript recently, so I'm just like, I think this is how you do it. Let me tell you how terrible it is. So I literally was thinking, so for those who don't know, I primarily use PHP, and so in PHP there's like a for each loop. It's very simple, okay? I said to myself, oh, I'll just use a for each loop. And then I said to myself, oh no, how do you do a for each loop in JavaScript? And before you know it, I was looking up how to do a for each loop in JavaScript. And then I was like, where do I even go to find the best way to do can you even do a for each loop in JavaScript? I was like, is that a thing? I was like, I don't really remember people doing for each loops in JavaScript. And then my mind just failed. I was like, oh, this is bad. So I looked up how to do a for each loop, and I landed on the documentation for JavaScript, and I totally looked at that and was like, I don't even know. And I just deviated from it. I was like, nope. And then I said, just do a normal for loop. That was... Don't do that, guys. Like, if you're saying that you're gonna do a for each loop, just do the for each loop and just commit to it. I deviated from it basically because I was like, I don't know how to do this. That wasn't a good look for me at all. I didn't feel good about that. I was like, oh, this is terrible. This isn't good. I laugh now, but in that interview, it was over the computer, over a Zoom call. I was like so like uncomfortable in terms of like, I don't feel like I'm doing a good job. I did not prepare myself for this very well. That's my fault. Also, I don't recommend using a language that you aren't comfortable in. That was my problem. I was like, JavaScript, because everyone knows JavaScript, right? Don't do that. I should have just stuck with PHP and then just did it. And you know, the interviewers may not have known PHP, but hey, that's what I know, and I should have just went forward with PHP. The funny thing is, the night before, in an effort to prepare, I created 2 different files. One of them was just like an index.js file, and the other one was an index.php file. And I was like, okay, depending on what the challenge is, maybe I will pick JavaScript and maybe I would pick PHP, or depending on how the interview is going, I would pick either one. Well, don't do that. Just stick with the language that you know, okay? So I messed myself up for that, and that's on me. I should have just stuck with what I was comfortable with and just ran with that. And if they didn't know what I was talking about, then it would have been an opportunity to teach, and then that would have shown a different part as well. So I messed that up, but that's okay, because it just means it wasn't the opportunity for me, and there's something else out there that has my name written all over it. So we're just going to move forward with that one. So the plan for the coming weeks is, the next week I should say, is apply for more jobs, and I have a couple of interviews as well, and a coding challenge to complete, which I'm terrified of. So we'll see. We'll see how all this stuff goes. I don't think, this is a very side note, because it's very much a side note here, but I don't think people understand the amount of pressure it is to perform in a live setting when you're coding. It's scary. It's very terrifying. So when people ask you to do that, it's like, I know you've probably done it. Like, the other person that's interviewing you has probably done it too, but it's a lot to ask for somebody. I get completely nervous because in my eyes, I'm just like, if I mess up, oh man, it's bad. So here we are. We're going to keep pushing forward because there is something out there with my name on it. I just have to figure out what that is. I'm just going to continue to apply and continue to move forward with interview processes, and hopefully to get better as time progresses. So I will be back next week with another update. I have a very interesting week ahead of me, and I cannot wait to share it all with you. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And again, I have more job searching tips for you in the future, so please stick around for that, and also keep around for any further updates I have about job interviews. So I will be doing tips probably in every video. So please stick around for that, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there, guys.